gonna be fine. Just know.
Right. Live. Hello, everybody. We made it. I'm here with Gick and with Erland.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, guys.
Today's a day. I'll tell you that. Today's a day. Man. Okay, so I just want to explain where I'm coming from. So yesterday, I stayed up until around 5 a.m. this morning, finishing yesterday. And then I went to sleep. And I woke up at like 11, which was like 5 hours ago. And then I spent another 2 hours finishing yesterday. And then I started working on today like 3 hours ago. And I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot happened today, and I didn't get through it all. So that's where I am. I just want to say that up front. I know like almost nothing about today. I do know that there's a current ongoing live event going on in Moscow. And yeah, it was an event that the United States intelligence community told everyone would happen 2 weeks ago. And Russia denied it. They said, no, it's fake. It's fake news. And it's a lie to destabilize our society. And those gosh darn Anglo-Saxons. And that's basically what they said. And then it happened today. So
yeah, and they're currently making it worse. At least Medvedev already said that if it can be established, and he's implying that it will be established, of course, that Ukraine had anything to do with it, then of course there will be revenge for that.
Oh yeah, revenge.
At the same time, the GUR is currently claiming that this is an inside job. So there's some back and forth there. I think both is, I don't think, either of those stories is very likely. But yeah, this is looking really bad. And so far, I think the FSB has confirmed 40 people shot, or 40 people dead. But it looks like they have been so late to the event, and with the roof burning and collapsing on top of that, there are videos of it collapsing partly. I think they will be able to find so many more bodies under the rubble, and this is looking really, really bad.
Yeah, it's as
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that number is higher, a lot higher, from what I've seen. But another thing I saw that kind of strikes me is that I don't think this has been performed by amateurs. When you see someone shoot to kill, and they know how that feeling is, they don't hesitate. When you see terrorists who have maybe never actually fired a weapon, they tend to be a lot more irrational in their behavior. I'm not saying that this was it didn't look like a special operations team.
No.
But it did look like these people had been into similar situations before. Let's say it like that.
Yeah, they did not appear to me to have that much training. The way they move was very like amateur. It seemed that none of them really knew where to go next. One of them would just walk in a direction, and then the other two would like jog to catch up, and it looked like they didn't know what they're doing really. But simultaneously, like you said, it seemed that they were totally okay with firing their weapons.
Yeah. I think what was also interesting, and I personally have absolutely no clue about that, but I saw it mentioned by people who know this stuff really well, is that they suggest that part of the ammo at least seems to have been really bad or old. So I don't know what that can tell us about the about the equipment, but it doesn't seem to be very, very high class ammo.
Yeah, it's very sparky. Yeah. I feel like people should not read too much into video. Now, I've seen a bunch of video in my past of these sorts of events, and sometimes reality doesn't look like what you think it should look like from watching a movie. So,
yeah, but what we can definitely say is that from all the reports, and I mean, to be fair, I did have quite some big Telegram issues, and I hear a lot of people have that. So it might be the European servers which are, I don't know, maybe slowed down or something like that in relation to the event even. But from all the reports I heard, it took almost an hour until the Russian SWAT equivalent arrived at the scene, which is just way too late. Particularly because there was advanced warnings, right?
yeah, by several weeks of warning, you know.
Yeah, and you know, some reports existed that those at least 4 gunmen are at large. So you know, this could end up even worse than this, and this is really, really bad.
Yeah. So to me, it makes Russia look very bad. I don't know how Russians would see it.
No, I can say that from the messages in Telegram I read, there's a lot of mentioning of Ukraine already.
Yeah.
It's they're gonna twist it whatever way they want, and this is what annoys me the most about it.
Yeah, there's when I don't know if you watch Inside Russia, but he lived in the apartment building that got hit by a Ukrainian drone early on, like one of the earlier attacks on Moscow. The drone like flew into a window and like blew up inside an apartment. But he lived in that apartment building. He didn't currently because he fled Russia, but he like owns an apartment in the apartment building and he knows all the people there. And he was talking to them as it happened, and he was like, "A drone flew into our apartment building. What's going on?" And they're like, they were like showing him photographs and saying like, this happened. We see the drone laying on the ground, etc. And then the Russian authorities showed up and told them to watch the television to get the real news, and that everything they saw and heard was fake news. And ultimately, all of them accepted it. They all basically said, the government's right. We don't know what we saw. We were wrong. The real news was something totally different. Even though the drone flew into their apartment building and they filmed the drone, like the drone like fell out the window, if you remember, and was like laying on the ground. They like went over and like physically touched it. And then the government told them it didn't happen, and they believed the government. Like not public. It's not just publicly agreeing to save themselves. They actually agreed. Like actually, it changed their opinion. So I don't know, dude. Russia's a weird place. It's just weird.
Yeah. I remember in school when we discussed democracy, and that's, I don't know, 20 years ago. Not everyone knows it, but I'm actually old. I remember talking to some Russian people or exchange students, and we were discussing basically the concept of democracy in Russia, and like those, relatively Western friendly Russians which were there, they explained to me that Russia needs someone like Putin. They need some sort of alpha male at the top, because the Russian people, they would require orders. So, and they would require someone to tell them what to think. And, back then I thought, what kind of idiotic idea they have, that's just not how it works and so on. But I don't know, maybe they were right to some extent, seeing everything that happened in last, I don't know, couple of years. Maybe they were right back then already, and it just got so much worse.
Yeah, well, I don't know. The way I've heard it described was that the Russians, they were growing in wealth really quickly in like the early 2000s. Like their wealth was growing so quickly that they just thought, this is great. We don't really care like why this is happening. We just want it to keep happening, And it was like boiling slowly boiling a frog, where their self-interest was being satiated, so they didn't care. And as the government cracked down harder and harder into this authoritarianism, they just they rolled with it because they were benefiting still. And now they're not benefiting at all, but they're too far in it, so they can't really change. Anyways, there was other news today that I don't really I only have the ability to talk about this today, to be honest. Like we've been thinking about doing another stream tomorrow to talk about this in more depth. But there was a big missile strike today.
Yeah, really big and really bad.
Yeah, really bad. But this was predicted prior to the strike. Like the size, the targets, and the weapons used were all more or less known-ish. Known might be the wrong word. It was predicted. Like it follows the set Russian pattern that they've been following for. This is the end of the third cycle, so we're going to enter the fourth cycle soon. But yeah, it ended up pretty bad. The long story short is that they targeted the power infrastructure across the entire country. Kharkiv was battered with missiles. It caused very significant damage to the electrical infrastructure. I haven't been able to map that or even geolocate the strikes yet, to be honest, but maybe that's something that we can talk about in another stream, maybe tomorrow. And Zaporizhia was also hit really badly. They hit the what was it, like the turbine area of the power plant.
Yeah, not only. There are reports that a total of 8 missiles have hit the dam, and one of them was targeting an area which, in my opinion, I mean, maybe I'm not an expert, but to me it looks like there wasn't any sort of goal to disable the dam, but rather their goal was to blow parts of it away.
As I understand it, I don't think Russia possesses the firepower to take out the dam. The estimates that I've seen was that it would take around 300 direct hits from these missiles to knock down the dam.
Yeah, one of them definitely, or at least according to the reports, disabled the floodgates already.
Yeah, that you can do. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's also already really bad. And there's going to be, flooding season soon, I guess.
Yeah. So one worry that's been floating around for a while is that Russia could take advantage of what's called a water hammer, where if you weaken the bottom dam, and the way they weakened it may make this actually impossible to do a water hammer now. But what you do is that you weaken the bottom dam, and then you take out dams above it. So I think where am I? I think the dam you would want to take out is, I think, this one. If I remember right. I think it's this one, the Kamyanska Dam. And that would release a flood down the river. I think there are a few other dams in between, but that flood, combined with the weakened lower dam, could burst the dam, and then it would the flood would carry down towards Tokmak. So the flood would go kind of down here, which is would be weird. It would be weird for Russia to do, to be honest, to flood Tokmak. But I guess they really wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, with the Novokakhovka Dam, it also mostly hurt the Russian occupied side of the Dnieper.
Yep.
Most of the flooding area was south of the river.
Yeah, we've been I've been kind of like joking, I guess, about the Ukrainian breakthrough in the south being caused by Russia blowing a dam. It would be a weird twist of events. It would be just like taking out all the minefields is like, why demine a minefield when you can flood it? You know?
Yeah, I can already see all the tanks getting stuck, so I'm not gonna follow your prediction here. Was that a prediction even?
No,
Please don't, because that's not one to joke with here. By the way, just for the record, I asked John, because he's doing those stats on missile uses and so on, and he just posted about them like minutes ago. And I asked him if he has time to join, and he said he will be there in around max 10 minutes. He said 10 minutes a few minutes ago, so maybe we need to fill in some more 5 minutes with talking about missiles until he can talk about the stats.
Well, to talk about missiles for a few more minutes. By the stats that we have, Russia can produce between 60 and 70 KH-101s per month. They took a break of launching missiles that was longer than expected by about 2 weeks. There's one theory that break was caused by the A-50Us getting shot down, that they couldn't use the A-50Us to map out the Ukrainian air defenses, so they had to spend an extra few weeks shooting Shaheds, etc., to make up the difference. And I don't know if they got a new A-50 into position. Maybe they did. I'm not really sure. But yeah, that was one thing that I talked like 2 or 3 weeks ago that I thought that they would launch a missile strike then. I honestly never even considered the A-50Us getting shot down when I said that. In retrospect, I probably should have, because it probably was actually a really big deal in regards to those missile strikes. And if they are in fact making around 70 per month, which there's no reason to believe they're not, because all the evidence points towards it. It would mean that they have about one more attack worth of missiles sitting in reserve. Their planes are currently still in Engel's base, and they were apparently resupplied by an IL-76 this morning, right after they landed after launching their the missile strikes today. So there's a lot of evidence pointing towards those planes being ready for a third attack. I don't know when that will be. Maybe today, maybe next week. Like, I don't know. But if all the numbers are accurate, if all the estimates are accurate, they would have enough for one more big attack or two more smaller attacks. Followed by probably 2 to 3 months of no missile strikes.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that I read earlier was a post by Radio and Nukes, and he said that, or at least he analyzed Rybar's post, and Rybar claims that Russia targeted a substation in Shepetivka, which is directly responsible for supplying power to the nuclear plant in Khmelnytsky. So, even the targets they're choosing, they are really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I also read today that the nuclear plant in Zaporizhia would be offline again. I'm not sure if that's connected to the missile strikes, but
I believe it is, because
the strikes tonight, they have been absolutely devastating, and unfortunately we can't even talk too much about it because we still haven't read up on all the information.
Yeah, I still have dozens and dozens of things to go through. Hi, John.
Hey, man.
How's it going?
It's all right. Hectic morning.
Okay. So, I turned up your volume a little bit.
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, that's a lot better. Okay. So, I don't know, do you want to talk about missiles? About your stats, etc.?
Sure. I'm going to actually get that pulled up myself. Okay, so I went ahead and updated earlier this morning my catalog of Russian missile and UAV raids against Ukraine. I had previously updated that beginning of this month, I think March 1st or 2nd, after the big two raids, last night and the day before, decided to go ahead and update for the past 3 weeks. So pretty consistent trends overall. Relatively essentially daily raids with Shaheds and other tactical missile systems, as particularly ballistic missiles in the form of S-300P, S-400 used for surface attack. And then, obviously, the past 2 days, there's been the two very large raids with cruise missiles, which was, I believe, the first time there had been a major cruise missile raid in about a month or so. So presumably the Russians had spent this time stocking up missiles to execute this raid.
Yeah. So they fired what was it? 55 or something?
It was actually, let me open
Or
up
65? I can't remember. I think it was
so, okay, I got it pulled up. So
okay.
For last night, the total was 12 Iskander M's, 40 KH-101s, 5 KH-22s, 7 Kinzhals, 2 KH-59s, and 22 S-300Ps and S-400s.
Okay, so it's like 69 of the cruise missiles plus a bunch of ballistic missiles and other stuff.
Yes, it was, I believe the exact count was 41 ballistic missiles, 40 subsonic cruise missiles, 5 supersonic cruise missiles, and then I believe was it on balance 63 Shads.
Yeah. It was more cruise missiles than I thought there would be.
Yeah, I mean the thing that's, I guess, what was very difficult about these raids is
There's often a tendency during the chaos while the raid's actually happening for people to say, "Oh, it's one of the largest raids of the war," or "It is the largest raid of the war," and then inevitably it turns out to be quite a bit smaller than everybody was thinking during it. Um, in terms of absolute size, just relative to when I've started collecting data, I believe this would actually be the second largest raid, again, that I have data for since August of 2022, essentially. So this would probably put it in the top 5 of the war overall. There's a bit of uncertainty there because obviously the opening raids at the very beginning of the war were quite large, and there are also quite a few large ones before August that weren't numerically recorded or published by the Ukrainian government.
Yeah. So, do you think the A50s getting shot down changed the timeline of the strike?
I'm not sure. Perhaps somewhat. Normally they employ the A50s to do ELINT, electronic intelligence gathering, on the positions of Ukrainian air defense sites, specifically emitters such as radars. So that gets fed into the mission planning process. The loss of those assets may have delayed their timetable somewhat. If this was something they've been planning to do for weeks, as that would have potentially disrupted their ability to, generate those ELINT connections or collections, excuse me. That said, depending on what the actual timeline was, once they had gotten their business back in order and gotten another A50 reliably up on station, depending on when they had originally planned to do these raids, it may not have impacted the timetable that much if again they had been able to reliably get an A50U up on station by the time they wanted to begin doing those ELINT collections for mission planning.
So, yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about with the missiles?
I mean, there isn't really much to say. I mean, it's more of the same. The interesting thing, or one of the few interesting things, is that the Russians haven't employed Caliber in quite a while.
Yeah.
My guess, and sort of my licking my finger and putting it to the wind, would be that it was previously reported they were producing 20 to 30 calibers per month. My guess would be potentially that they have not necessarily stopped manufacturing them, but significantly prioritized KH-101 production in terms of raw materials, resources, manufacturing equipment, machine tooling, etc., labor, and caliber production. Is at a low level, and they're just kind of building back the VMFs, their Russian Navy stock, and they're expanding capacity expansion efforts on KH-101. That would be my sort of my speculation.
Yeah, I think they launched 2 submarines yesterday or whatever. So I guess they could launch calibers soon, or like how many of those submarines even carry? I don't think it's that many. So
it's 4 each, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, my understanding is they're tube launched. They're launched to the submarines torpedoes. They carry reloads for torpedoes, but due to the way that it's designed, I need to go have some diagrams of it somewhere that kind of explains why this is the case. They can't actually reload calibers. They can't carry more than 4 calibers, despite the fact they carry room for more than 4 torpedoes.
Interesting. Is it just because of the length? Caliber's pretty long.
Let me actually see if I can go pull up a diagram of this. I think H.I. Sutton has published some good ones that kind of indicate why this is the case. I think it's because it's because caliber is a different diameter than their torpedoes, if my memory serves, and they have 2. So Kilo has 4 tubes for torpedoes, and then I believe 2 slightly larger tubes for caliber. And so as a result, they can store a pair of calibers, one in each tube, and then an additional two for reloads. And then the rest of the weapons
Okay.
room space is dedicated to torpedo storage for the four main tubes. I can
Okay.
put this image in chat if you want to pull it up.
Yeah, so they're just they love having different sized tubes. I know that.
Yeah, the Russians have always been historically they've always tolerated a degree of deviance in terms of their tube launch munitions. We saw this with their SSNs. During the Cold War, they would oftentimes have larger tubes for missiles or special payloads. U.S. design practice, as well as Royal Navy, Western design practice in general, was to essentially insist on any tube launch missiles having the same diameter as our torpedoes, or less than that diameter.
Yeah, just make your torpedo bigger, right?
Well, yeah, let's say Russians did actually one of the reasons why they had those additional larger tubes is because they had some special large diameter torpedoes in addition to the missiles.
It's interesting to me that they opted for the tube launch of a submarine.
Kilo is an old design, to be fair.
Yeah.
The modern, so if you look at these Severodvinsk's, their modern SSN that's built post dissolution of the Soviet Union, it has vertical launch cells. That is 32 of them for Caliber and Onyx. The older Oscar SSGNs, nuclear powered guided missile submarines, they had a special system for launching not Granite, Shipwreck, the Shipwreck series of anti-ship missiles. Let me pull up the actual name of it. It's SSN. Oh yeah, it is Granite. What am I talking about? Yeah, so it's the SSN 19 Shipwreck, also known as P700 Granite. They had the massive Oscar SSGNs. They had a special, not quite vertical launch system. It was like slightly angled forward, and then those were mounted onto the side of the submarine, but it wasn't like a general purpose universal vertical launching system that we would think of in the modern context. And then their older submarines just had, again, the tube launch missiles. Same thing with the Kilos, because that's, keep in mind, that is a Cold War design. And then their clean slate post Soviet design, the Sevs, those have 32 universal vertical launch cells for 3M14 caliber, which is land attack, 3M54 caliber, which is this the anti-ship version of Caliber, and then Onyx, which is supersonic anti-ship missile.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Do you want to talk about the plane launched missiles? They launched some. Were they like KH-32s or whatever?
The supersonic ones.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so those were KH-22s. I mean, it's the old massive Soviet supersonic anti-ship missiles that were intended to be fielded by the Badgers and backfires during the Cold War to target U.S. Carrier battle groups. I mean, it's with Russian employment of KH-22 has always been a bit of an enigma. They're old. They don't have any form of GNSS, Global Navigation Satellite System guidance. They're just inertially guided, and then they have terminal radar guidance. Although I should say it isn't actually clear to me if they employ the terminal radar guidance when programmed for land attack. That's unknown as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. I don't know what those missiles attacked, but I get the feeling they attacked the dam. At least like one or two of them.
So I'm going to be honest, I kind of doubt it because I think they probably would have missed the dam.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. So as far as I can tell, it looks like they fired a bunch of them impacted around Zaporizhia, but the dam seems to have been hit with probably multiple ballistic missiles.
Yeah. Well, I have no clue where those those missiles went, though. So I don't know. I know there were hits in Zaporizhia itself. I know some people were wounded, some houses destroyed, etc.
Yeah, some of them are actually geolocated, Andrew.
Okay.
There's one, just north. What is it? Northwest from the dam. One missile went into residential area.
One thing I would say, so sort of my working hypothesis for the KH-22s is, aside from sort of the indiscriminate terror aspect of employing them, my working theory is sort of that the primary Russian intent is to use them as decoys. That's honestly what I expect they're using them for. Their precision is kind of terrible. If there's actually a point target they want to hit, KH-22 isn't going to be particularly useful for that. Patriot can engage and defeat it, so can SAMP-T, as can S-300P and S-300V1. So all of the critical sites that are defended by those assets are going to be safe for the most part, even if the KH-22 manages to get within a couple hundred meters of them. So again, my working theory is they're just sort of decoys to just clutter up the airspace during raids. With the unfortunate, I'm sure the Russians don't care, but from Ukraine's standpoint, the unfortunate side effect of killing a very large number of civilians.
Yeah. The weird thing is that every once in a while they'll just shoot those missiles by themselves. I don't understand that at all.
I have no idea.
So one thing I heard about already, obviously, is that those missile strikes now are a direct response to Ukraine's attacks on refineries and so on. I know we talked about this in the past, but how likely is it, and how long do they really need to prepare such a launch of such a scale?
So, and in late 2022, it took them about 2 weeks to plan the initial raid. That was part of sort of Surovikin's campaign against Ukrainian critical infrastructure. That mission planning process took them about 2 weeks. I would expect them to shorten that cycle significantly, especially for subsequent raids. At the beginning of the campaign, you would expect there to be a lot more planning that goes into it beforehand than you would for the follow-on raids. That said, I'm always a little bit skeptical that Russian raids are necessarily in reaction to anything. I suspect they are probably more thoughtful about how they go about doing target selection and mission planning than we commonly give them credit for.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just wanted it to be out there again, because probably we also have some new audience, which wasn't part of previous discussions and so on. So I always think it's good. So Andrew, I don't know if you saw, but Ipsum joined us.
Yep.
And since I just mentioned refineries, maybe he has something to say about refineries. What's the latest?
So, if you guys haven't covered it yet, and I apologize, I was a little busy earlier. I couldn't join the beginning of the stream. Andrew, I posted the graphic from the FT article that I shared with you guys earlier in this stream chat. I don't know if you want to post that or share it. It essentially shows with a broad, roughly 1,000 kilometer strike range what Ukraine can hit and what it has hit. And what really surprised me, I hadn't quite realized the extent of every single target they've hit over this time. I'd never seen it all in one place, and just that it's the overwhelming majority, like 85 to 90% of refineries in range, refineries or other facilities in range have been hit. So this is oil refineries, terminals, depots, storage facilities. There's only a handful denoted on this map that haven't been hit. But I think one thing that it does get lost in the conversation is hitting a refinery does not mean disabling a refinery, nor a terminal, nor a storage facility, nor a depot. A depot, if you hit it, it actually probably does disable it, probably permanently. But refineries are designed just because if you think of the refining process, which is essentially superheating hydrocarbons and selectively skimming off different levels of them, it's going to have a lot of issues with equipment resilience and a lot of pieces needing to be taken offline. That's why these facilities are the size of 20 Manhattan city blocks, and there's not a lot of single points of failure. They're regularly expecting parts to be offline, so hitting one does not necessarily take it all offline in terms of its capacity. Having said that, the point I made earlier today, and I could not have been more disgusted when I woke up this morning to see, I've linked the FT article. It's been reported elsewhere, obviously, just that the U.S. has, quoting U.S. government sources to the Financial Times, repeatedly warned Ukraine to stop attacking Russian energy infrastructure and refineries specifically, because they don't want the price of gas in the U.S. to be negatively affected in an election year. Now, we've all heard of bad journalism, and maybe some of the reporting here is twisting words or exaggerating exactly what was said. Maybe some of the people leaking these conversations to reporters are exaggerating it for their own self-interest. But even if you take that with a grain of salt, what a dark day for U.S. diplomacy if that's actually true. If that's what the U.S. is saying. Russia is not the marginal contributor to global refined products demand. The U.S. is a net energy exporter, a net petroleum exporter. It's a net crude oil exporter. The Biden administration drew down a good chunk of the strategic petroleum reserve in 2022 and 2023 to keep prices low. Well, there was that initial surge in crude and refined products prices. This, of course, took a lot of the ammo out of the U.S. gun in terms of their ability to maintain price stability for energy products, especially gasoline, which is the politically sensitive one. And yet when the price of crude was trading in the high 60s and low 70s, they chose not to refill it. In fact, issued a statement saying they would not refill that strategic petroleum reserve, which was one of the greatest unforced political errors since the start of the full invasion by the U.S. Absolutely unforgivable. And OPEC, who said, hey, well, we can't openly support you, but we can make a deal as long as you keep prices high. You want to bid up and refill your strategic petroleum reserve? That's great. We don't need to do production cuts. But when the U.S. came out and said we won't do that, even with our now minimal SPR holdings, OPEC started a whole range of production cuts, thus massively moving the price higher. Had the U.S. refilled its strategic petroleum reserve over the last 2 years, or had OPEC Plus not cut production, then this issue that the U.S. claims to see as paramount would not be a factor. It would be easily solvable. You could just get OPEC Plus to, walk back some of those production cuts, or you could just use your newly refilled strategic petroleum reserve in the U.S. to keep the price stable for U.S. consumers, thus no election risk. But neither of those things happen because of political malpractice by the Biden administration, an administration that, despite not having any party loyalty to that administration, I've carried water for far too long, especially for their national security advisor. And for these statements to come out is, if this in any way reflects reality, is absolutely reprehensible. And we've all seen, the memes with Jake Sullivan, can Ukrainians please die more quietly? It's absolutely reprehensible. And I'm as I hold an American passport, and it made me absolutely ashamed to be an American seeing that comment, assuming it's true. You always have to say, maybe the reporters got it wrong, but assuming it's true, it made me ashamed.
So, but is it true? Because
I know your theory. I know your theory.
Yeah, my theory is it's absolutely not true. I will probably not say what my theory is, but so one in the comment, Mark, he said that Kirby doubled down on it when asked. So did you follow up with the latest information here?
I have not seen Kirby's comment. I have a very loud keyboard, so I'm going to mute myself for a second just to see Kirby's comment, and I'll let you elaborate further about the theory that you definitely don't have.
No, I will not come up with theories, but no, I don't. Andrew, do you have a theory? Or John has a.
I have a theory.
Okay.
My theory is, of course, it's completely true. Why wouldn't it be? We ask them not to do stuff. We make requests of them, of the Ukrainian government, such as this, all the time, every month since the beginning of the invasion, whether it's reported or not. We've always have some ridiculous request for them. Of course, it's true. Why wouldn't it be? It's in keeping with all of our prior behavior. So
I would like to say that when the chief of the president of Ukraine's communication staff says that is not true, that's for me a sign that it actually is true. If there was nothing to this, I think they wouldn't have commented at all.
Well, they issued a statement. They issued a statement prior to that, basically saying we told the U.S. to get screwed, more or less, that we'll attack whatever legitimate targets we want with the means available to us.
So I saw the legitimate targets comment. Unfortunately, everything for John Kirby on Google right now, with Ukraine as part of the search parameters, is getting deflected to results for the recent events in Moscow. So, Gick, what exactly did Kirby say?
I don't know.
Your word.
I don't know. I was hoping that you would find it because I had the very same issue.
I mean, you did see there was a bit of walk back. I'm forgetting exactly who it was from. I think it might be I know they edited the FT article twice. There was a bit of walk back that these were long-standing concerns, and it wasn't that the U.S. was essentially like calling all last week. It was more that they'd said several times, like, please don't do anything that's going to jeopardize this. But the U.S., hand-wringing and pearl-clutching over attacks on legitimate targets in Ukraine is nothing new. Wouldn't be shocked at that. It wouldn't make me ashamed any more than the last 18 times that it happened. It was the direct conflation of Ukraine's attacks on Russian energy infrastructure with the U.S. gasoline price leading up to Biden's re-election campaign. That was the thing that was absolutely had never been seen before. And again, maybe 90% of the story is true, but that particular element was the exaggeration. It sure looked, I've worked in this area for a living in terms of political communications and can kind of read between the tea leaves, at least sometimes. It sure looked, based on the original FT report, that this came from the U.S., not from Ukraine. And it really sounded like they got these from U.S. sources, or at least got it confirmed by U.S. sources, including the explicit quid pro quo. Not quid pro quo, but the explicit link between our reservation is not necessarily just about escalation, just about retaliation. We also have a material reservation about how this will impact gasoline prices in the U.S. over the next 6 months, and thus Biden's re-election chances. And that was the part that was just unconscionable to me. Like, how can you possibly tell a country fighting for its life to sit back and, as the Sullivan meme says, die quietly, just because you want gasoline prices in Ohio to be 2 cents lower on average over the summer? That's unconscionable and immoral and reprehensible.
Well,
and also, I should do another console. Incredibly solvable by other means. The U.S. is the largest oil producer in the world. It's a net energy exporter. It could easily solve this.
So the threat here isn't so much Russia cutting back, right? It's the threat would be them shutting down Kazakhstan, right?
Right. So the Kazakh pipeline, right, that ties into ExxonMobil and Chevron, and that would be bad news for Exxon and Chevron. And Exxon and Chevron, there's a lot of people who don't like those companies, and I will stand for those companies every day of the week just because of the objective strategic advantage that U.S. energy preponderance gives to the U.S. government in applying its policies. Even if by no means are they perfect, nor is any other massive corporation. But, I mean, they can take one for the team here if they have to. If Russia wants to shut that down, that's a two-way street. Russia is not allowing Chevron and ExxonMobil to transit their territory for free. So if Russia wants to shut that down, which they did in 2022, One, guess who's taking the biggest financial hit as a percentage of revenues? It's not going to be Chevron or Exxon. It's going to be Kazakhstan, your partner in the CST. They're in the CSTO, right? They're in the CSTO, and your regional Central Asian partner. They will be pissed. That's a huge revenue stream for them. And Chevron and Exxon, if it's really March 2024, and at this point you haven't taken measures to ameliorate some interruptions of that service, that's on you. And if Russia does that, okay, so you can't complain about Nord Stream anymore, even if, or your idea of what actually happened to Nord Stream. So you're going to unilaterally shut down private companies who have made contracts with your government just because you don't like actions taken, not even by the government of the country they're based in, but a government who's friends with the government of the country they're based in. And they're going to complain about weaponizing the US dollar? That would be a huge red line for them to cross. What's the next private company that's going to willingly go into Russia after that? So it's not a small step for Russia to take to shut that down. Yes, they did in 2022 when things were really, really bleak for them, obviously, and they were definitely throwing everything at the wall, right? That's when they did pay in rubles for gas, which was never even pay for rubles. That's when they obviously shut down Nord Stream 1 and in response, and that's when they started playing the games about the different turbines. So they were very, very aggressive in 2022. They've obviously since tried a more pragmatic, consensus-based geoeconomic policy. If they want to go ahead and shut that down indefinitely, if they want to pretend it's a technical reason that they can't get a certain piece fixed unless the U.S. lifts sanctions on Gazprom Bank as they did before, fine. But the signal will be clear, and the economic pain will be shared all around that table.
All right, I got the link to Kirby, and I'm gonna put it in our little chat here, or private chat. So that's the link. You can go listen to that real fast if you'd like to. It should be linked right to the timestamp.
I have a question for John, I guess. So, what could the U.S. actually? What do you think they would do if Ukraine just ignores this request? Do you think they're going to basically punish them somehow?
No, we aren't providing them aid currently, except for the most recent drawdown package. What are we going to do? We have no leverage over them currently, for the most part. We have minimal leverage. So my guess would be they are going to ignore this and keep on as they have been. And perhaps this discussion will be revisited once the supplemental is passed and we're actually providing them with consistent security assistance again.
Yeah. It's a simple matter of money talks.
And I just saw the clip. Thank you for posting that. I mean, that is the most milquetoast response I've ever seen. That is John Kirby walking it back in DC parlance, right? We do not encourage nor enable Ukraine to strike targets inside Russia or their energy infrastructure. Not encouraging, well, we all know not enabling, right? Which means that we all know what that's code for. That's like, you can't strike inside Russia with US weapons. We've all known that. That's been the rule 2 years almost now. We do not encourage is the most lightweight possible way to say that you're not terribly thrilled about something. And it's completely different from what was said in the reporting earlier today that got leaked, right? Because what was reported earlier today was the U.S. was pressuring Ukraine to stop. Not encouraging versus pressuring you to stop in diplomatic language are, that's polar opposites. So, I mean, I think that sounds like Kirby, most likely in reality, just dodging the question. But if that was actually quite thought out, that line, which obviously he'd be expecting, then it would be, that's a very, very, as I am using the very parochial American phrase, milquetoast, but
So
feigned condemnation, right? How
Yes, well-
dare you do that thing that I didn't technically tell you could do, but I'm not going to tell you to stop. I just want to encourage you.
I just want to take a step back and because we have some questions in the comments. So the threat here isn't so much shutting down the Russian production, because they can spread out their production across other facilities, and probably the facilities aren't going down all the way anyway. But so they might cut down on their domestic supply, but they'll still be able to export, right? So the threat is that they'll shut down Kazakhstan, because the pipeline goes. Don't they use two pipelines that go through Russia?
Actually, more than two. Depending on exactly which. It's a pipeline network, right? So there's multiple routes, and it depends where exactly you're cutting off different nodes. They have no shortage in terms of options they could take to selectively and using salami slices apply pressure in terms of the supply of that pipeline network from Kazakhstan onto the ports. That is 100%. They have a lot of optionality there, but to my original point, a financial pain will be shared around the table there, not just by Exxon and Chevron. And Exxon and Chevron might be better positioned and hopefully better insured to absorb that pain than maybe some other parties. But also, in terms of their refining capacity and their export capacity, energy works on locational marginal pricing and locational marginal supply, meaning that, if I've got, X amount of, let's call it, say, gasoline in a terminal in New York City, and gas stations in Utah and Nevada are running empty, that doesn't help that I have those in terminals in New York City. I need to get that to Nevada, to Utah. And that's going to take, if I can't use the pipes, or pipes are capacity, or pipes are offline, it's going to take a bunch of trucks, and it's going to take a bunch of time, and it's going to take a bunch of dollars. And so the biggest effect of the strikes on these different facilities is most likely going to be about locational marginal availability of different products, whether it's jet fuel, heating oil, gasoline, aka petroleum, petrol, in all of those areas. And it's going to pop up in different areas, and the more strikes that come, the more it will become a game of whack-a-mole. Their overall export capacity is much harder to make a medium-term impact on, just because there's so many terminals and there's so many ports, whether it's Black Sea, which has been hit, and it's, Petersburg on the Baltic and the general area, which has been hit, but has a lot of infrastructure there. So actually making a material impact on their export capacity over the next 6 months, that's a big ask. Having a 3-week fuel shortage in Saratov, in Nizhny Novgorod, entirely possible.
That sounds great. Especially if you can take out their military supplies at the same time and force them to route more supplies to their military. That'd be great.
Exactly. And nothing is more fuel hungry than offensive military operations, as we all know. And if you look at that map, you can see where most of the targets that have been hit most of the times are, and they are in Kursk and Belgorod. And so those are as well as Rostov. And so those are the terminals and depots that you're going to need. It's not about refining crude oil. They have tons of crude oil refining facilities in Rostov and all around that area. But it's not as much about impacting Russia's ability to refine crude oil into products they then ship overseas through the Black Sea, through the Bosporus and the Suez Canal. It's about, if you hit the terminals and depots there, well, it doesn't matter how many refineries you have working in Nizhny Novgorod if you have nowhere to store up the fuel before an offensive operation in Belgorod or Kursk or Rostov.
I guess this might impact aviation quite a lot if it's successful. The amount of aviation fuel needed to conduct all these operations it's probably pretty big. Did anyone do any estimates on that you are aware of, John?
Come again?
Did anyone do any estimates of like how much aviation fuel is needed to sustain these operations? And I can't imagine that Russia is just keeping years amount of aviation fuel on stock.
Oh, I mean, they absolutely are. We do.
Really?
But the thing about aviation fuel is it's very, very specific.
Yes.
Much different than petrol, gasoline, right? You not necessarily for specialized armored vehicles, but you can run a truck on different formulations of gasoline, and it'll be fine, at least in the short term. Now, diesel and gasoline, yeah, you can't mix those, but you've got a lot of excess gasoline, and you can make it work. You cannot put specific types of aviation fuel for one platform into another and have it work for more than even for takeoff. That's how specialized those airframes are. And so even if you have to refine that aviation fuel as well in a refinery. And if you're unable to refine, if you only have 2 refineries making this specific type of aviation fuel and both are offline for 3 months, you're not going to get that. And no one else is going to make that exact formulation. So that's the kind of bottleneck that you really could see.
Would you like to talk about Kazakhstan going through Azerbaijan?
I mean, the one thing to keep in mind is this is always going to take a ton of time and a ton of dollars. And so when you hear, these alternative proposals, it reminds me of what you saw with, Russia talking about rerouting Yamal and the Western Siberian gas fields into China, where it's this idea that, okay, no worries, we can't sell our most cost-efficient gas fields into Europe anymore. Fine, we'll just sell them to China. Okay, do you have 200 billion USD in cash? And 200 billion is light; it's closer to $1 trillion. Do you have the Chinese signing on the contract? And do you have 10 years to wait before you see the first dollar? No, you don't have any of those things. China's not signing on. China's saying, okay, I want a fixed price. Lower fixed price. No, lower than that. I want to pay 20% of the market price. We'll sign a contract. 30 years, 20% of the current market price. Nominal. They have all the leverage. And, they're saying, okay, Russia, this is your pipeline. You're going to make the money. You're the seller selling to us. We have other options. You pay for the pipeline. You put up the cash. And Russia does not have that kind of cash to put up right now, nor does it have necessarily a ton of the industrial inputs it needs. And it doesn't have 10 years to wait before it sees its first dollar. So in terms of the Kazakhstan workaround, there's always some small capacity short-term workarounds. But a comprehensive rerouting, that takes a lot of time. And there's going to be someone in that chain who's going to have a ton of leverage, and they're going to hold out and wait for the best price. The same way when there's a developer who comes in and wants to build a whole new complex, there's going to be that one house owner who says, I'm not selling. I'll wait for a higher price. It'll take a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of know-how, and those are all in short supply right now.
Right. So, does anybody have any other oil-related topics or questions?
Yeah, maybe just one last question with regards to the results of the recent strikes on those refineries. Is there any latest, estimate or statistic on how much it actually hurt Russian production there?
I have a really bad estimate, if that helps. This is the estimate I've seen everywhere today, and it makes me want to pull my hair out, which is 60% of Russian export capacity, which is the worst math I've ever seen. It's saying, okay, take all the facilities that have been reported as being hit and take how much they make up of Russian export capacity, and then just quote that stat without any context, without suggesting that maybe not all of those facilities were offline, maybe not all of that damage was going to be long-term. But that is the one stat, and there's been a lot of hopium around that from people who are on our side more broadly. The CNNs and FTs and New York Times of the world talking about 60 to 70% of Russian export capacity. It's a crazy town number to throw that out. In terms of good stats, I've got nothing for you because only the Russians know that and they're not leaking it.
Okay. So, Andrew, 1 hour in, and we have not touched a single item on the list you prepared to talk about today.
True. We have not touched a single item on the list. I guess we should start. Or should we just keep talking about other stuff? I'm fine either way, to be honest.
I don't know. It feels really weird today because, like, I don't know. I've been missing out on so much information because I was in real life work stress. So there's another job which has me enslaved. I'm not sure if I'm prepared to talk about the front.
Well, I could just kind of like pound through these topics because some of these topics don't require that much talking, to be honest. Well, the first one is the defense of Rabatina is going really well, but the problem is that getting to Rabatina is getting increasingly dangerous. All of the roads are dominated by Russian FPV drones mostly, and also artillery, obviously, and helicopters occasionally as well. And Ukraine is mostly using the roads to the east of Rabatina, so they kind of drive down this tree line and then cut across onto this little tiny road and get into the town here, and then they've kind of made a path across onto this main road in the middle, and then they supply the town from there. So that's kind of the main way to get in. There's a secondary way to get in involving the north western side of the town, and I think this tree line is a tertiary supply line. And beyond that, it is really hard to get there because you kind of don't want to come in from the east, and you cannot come from the west. So the supply situation is awful. The medevac situation is also awful, but the defensive situation is actually really good. So I guess once you're in, you're in, and you're not leaving. But anyways, that's the Rabatina. I don't know. Would you like to talk more about that?
I don't think there's much more. I'm trying to remember what I did this week.
Yeah, there's been a lot of vehicle losses for Russia. A lot of BTRs, BTR-ATs, BMP-3s. They moved in their Marines, and the Marines the Marines did what they always do, which is just lay down and die, basically. And yeah, the Russian assaults have been spectacularly weak. They have not managed to do really anything.
And I heard there's still a bunch of trenches prepared to take more BTRs and BMPs to get stuck.
Sure. Yep.
And so if you don't know what I'm referencing here, maybe it's nice to mention it here. So Konstantin this week posted a video which is technically already known. It was released by the unit a month ago or something like that. But nevertheless, he's currently fundraising for one of the units involved in the defense of Rabatina, which is Spartan. So I don't know if you still have any bucks left for this month, you can donate and help some of the defenders there. Make sure to check out Konstantin's fundraiser. It's still ongoing. And watch the video, of course, of a BMP getting stuck in a trench. It's always nice.
Yeah, it's happening more and more. So that's kind of the Rabatina area. Novomikhailivka has had some really interesting artillery work. what an artillery unit that we've been following for, I don't know how long has it been, like 9 months. Well, they're stationed there. They're, I would say, one of the more elite units of Ukrainian artillery. They use M777s. They are they were the airborne for Ukraine, and then they transformed into basically M777 snipers. And they have a FPV group as well. But this artillery group, they basically single-handedly stopped this Russian assault, and it was pretty amazing. I think I can show parts of it.
I think you can show it. I think you can show all of it because it's so thermal. It's really like,
Yeah, it's very thermal.
it's very thermal. But did you see CJ coping about that? So CJ was asking, how are they this accurate? And he's refusing to accept that they are simply that good. So he's saying that they must have cut out all of the shots which missed, and they probably use PGMs.
You can see the shots that missed. They're right there. That's what these bright marks are. That's what they are.
Right? Maybe.
I mean, it's thermals. You can see the artillery, the hits. This is like the third shot, and they hit a vehicle.
So yeah, but just in terms of what we tracked so far on the losses here, it's I think just one BTR, maybe a second one, which is back there on that road, because that's the one that gets shown towards the end.
Yeah.
But what we saw in the beginning of the video is actually that, in that field, attacking towards the tree line there, there's still more vehicles, and we see at least one exploding. It could be, that was a mine roller and it hit a mine. But it could also be that we're about to see, a new pile of scrap metal right there.
Yeah, I think so. What's interesting about these vehicles is that they are BTR 70s. Maybe they're running out of the BTR 80s, but they are. It is a BTR 70. There is another video of this destroyed vehicle that is higher quality and taken from a top-down angle. And you can tell it's a BTR 70 because of the shape of the hatches on the roof of the vehicle is the 70 variant of the hatch design. Other than those hatches, I honestly don't know how to tell the difference between an 80 and a 70. But yeah.
So we see them attacking with BTR 70 in the north, and we see those weird Franken MTLBs in the south.
Yeah.
Okay, they're still making gains in Novomikhailivka, but I wouldn't say that's because of high quality of the equipment they use. It's probably just the mass.
Yeah. So just for reference, this is the I'm trying to load it. Trying to load the video or image. Here. Is this gonna show me what I want? Yeah, sort of. You can see this is a BTR 70. These hatches are like staggered like this. The BTR 80 is not like that. The BTR 80 is instead like this. You see how they're on the sides. So that's the only way I can tell the difference between a BTR 70 and a BTR 80. Other than that, I think they're identical. Or any changes, I can't tell. Yeah.
Hey, Andrew, if you don't mind, I was scrolling through all the chat and comments on the stream.
Yep.
There's a couple points that were raised that were very, very good points about what we were saying before. I'm sorry for switching topics. I just wanted to because these guys were making really good points. The Sub-Caspian pipeline is not under construction yet. That we were talking about with Azerbaijan. And there's a big debate about Belarus having refineries. Yes, there are Belarusian refineries, but who really owns them? And the other one is just that someone, Jimmy Jams, made a very, very good point, which is that Soviet refineries, just like Ukrainian Soviet infrastructure, were designed to not necessarily be efficient, but to have very few single points of failure and to be very resilient to attacks that were always imagined to be just around the corner. And those are points that I did not make as eloquently as I could have, and I saw there was a bunch of people talking about in the chat, so I wanted to address that. Sorry for interrupting, though.
Yeah, no problem. So anyway, that's our conversation on Novomikhailivka. Other than that, I don't think anything has changed in the past few days.
I think today there was a vehicle. I don't remember properly because Telegram broke for me and I needed to rush into work. But I think today there was a vehicle destroyed at a point where we didn't know the Russians were before.
Okay.
I think it was like in the north of Novomikhailivka in that factory. I think some vehicle was there.
Oh, here?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
You didn't map it yet, did you?
No.
Okay. Or was it yesterday? Like, days are very fluid for us.
It was not yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
The concept of time doesn't work if you map Ukraine.
No, it doesn't. No. Especially like the first 5 hours of every day I spend on yesterday. So time is almost irrelevant to me. In Hayarivka, Russia is okay. So how should I say this? The Russian advance in Hayarivka, they're trying to move across the northern pond, the northern bank of the pond. But they're having a lot of trouble because basically every structure here was destroyed with their air force. They bombed every single building into nothingness, including a lot of the basements no longer exist. So there's a very long stretch of just literally nothing until you get to this corner of the pond where there's a single bunker. You can't see it on this map, but on Google Map you can see there's a little bunker right there, and other than that there's nothing. The terrain is terrible. It's very uneven. It's hard to drive through. They can't even get vehicles there in the first place. There's very few places to hide, and they're just having a lot of issues here. And they're taking very significant casualties. But they keep trying. They keep marching their infantry up, and they keep having nowhere to hide and no cover, and they eat drones. They eat them for breakfast. So that's kind of the Hayarivka going on here. So we've located some footage. This is the bunker that I was just talking about. Ukraine built this bunker. It overlooks a little tiny bridge. I believe Russia just stacks up in this bunker because it's like the only cover around other than hiding under the bridge. But under the bridge, like immediately under it, is water, so it's a bad place to hide unless you like drowning. So yeah, that's...
drowning. That brings up a point. You're gonna talk about that, right?
Yes. That's...
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get there in a second. Novelska is getting heavily shelled, thus proving their stupid propaganda that they captured the town to be completely false. You can watch them shelling it. They shell it with tanks, they shell it with artillery, they hit it with mortars. The rumors of a capture are obviously wrong, and we knew it was wrong because they raised a flag on a house that had a roof. Novelska, there's a funny thing in Novelska, it's a funny fact. There's literally no building that has a roof in that town. And they haven't had a roof in 8-10 years. So I don't know how they hung a flag on the roof, huh? Probably because it wasn't there. And it was stupid propaganda that people ate up for no reason. Okay, so that's one bullet point that I'm just gonna keep going. Okay, Tonenka, we've had some bad news. The Russians have advanced pretty far west from the town, including with armored vehicles. There's a destroyed T-80 BVM. There's been BMPs, T-80s of unknown sort, and more BMPs. So it seems that not only has Russia borderline captured the town, they have not actually captured it, by the way, but not only have they borderline captured it, it's all a gray zone, but they are moving very far west at the same time, which is worrying. It's genuinely worrying. I'm not sure what Ukraine is intending on defending here. Are they just going to fall all the way back? Are they going to give up all of these fields and just defend the river? I'm not sure.
Could it be that sometimes they fall back to lure the Russians out?
That could be.
Because, like, from all I saw, I mean, we did have all the drone footage there, but from all I saw, the Russians, you know, they might be still laying there, but just less alive than they were before.
Yeah, they are less alive, especially this guy in particular. This video, I think he was trying to crawl to his friend. Like, I think they knew each other, and he was trying to crawl up to him. And when he got to him, he realized his friend was no longer with us. And he looked pretty upset. And then a grenade fell on his face. But yeah, that was that happened. We don't really have any. I don't have any news about Berdichi. Orlivka is lost. Russia has basically captured the entire town. Ukraine fell back. They're defending the water. It seems that they're just going to defend the water everywhere, to be honest. Pervomaiska is kind of the one spot they seem to be defending, but to be fair, it is covered by water. So maybe they just really like water. Maybe they're thirsty. Moving on up. There was an assault on near Andriivka, and this assault was kind of funny. So I'm going to just play the video. So we have a BTR. I think this is the BTR-82AT. And it crashed into a hole and landed on top of its infantry. Some of them anyway. The rest ran away. This BTR was eventually hit by FPV drones in another video. But then this other BTR, it decided to drive directly into the water. I would like to have you know that a BTR is quote amphibious, end quote. But just drove straight into the water. Yeah, you're right. It's water cooled now. Yeah.
So when I saw it first, I thought that the people jumped out there, you know, on that first hill, and that made the BTR crash into the water. But then there's this other video of the guy sitting next to the sunken BTR, you know, in regret.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder if he was inside still. I'm not entirely sure what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, you used the Fox.
I did. Let's see if this will work. Yeah, there it is. BTR's doing great. And there he is. He's just having a bad day.
He's probably wondering how he's going to explain that.
Why did he take his pants off?
I think they're just wet. I think he's wearing something, isn't
I don't know.
Hope so.
it? Looks like brighter camo pants, and then probably just wet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But then again, it wouldn't be the first Russian soldier without pants on. I would.
It's just wet long johns for YouTube.
Of course.
But by the way, if I may interject, the Islamic State has claimed responsibility for the attack in Moscow.
Convincing.
I can tell you one thing.
So some context here, though. Two things. The U.S. intelligence community has been warning the Russian government for weeks that there was very likely going to be an attack by a Islamic State cell or an affiliate of the Islamic State. On the other hand, IS has a tendency to claim random attacks that they did not, or claim responsibility for various random attacks that they themselves did not perpetrate. So, kind of goes in both directions here.
Yeah, and I can tell you, like, I was browsing Telegram because it's working again for me, and all I see is just like, oh, how did the US know and warn about this terrorist attack? They must have known who's planning it. It must be Ukraine. So all of Telegram, at least Russian Telegram I follow, is full of blaming Ukraine and the West for this. So whatever.
We knew about it, we
plans
planned it, and then we warned them publicly weeks in advance.
Yeah,
as part of our cunning plan.
Those Anglo-Saxons are at it again.
Anglo-Saxons, Ethelbert and Ethelred, I tell you.
What's very funny though is I'm pretty sure there's a recorded clip that's widely circulated of Putin calling the warning nonsense like 48 hours ago. So that did age beautifully.
Dick has the clip. You're in the chat. We posted that clip.
Oh, where did you?
I'll get it to you. I'll post it in this chat. Let me scroll up. I'll get back to you.
Okay. Do you want to say anything else about this assault on Andriivka? Because to me, I just saw a bunch of vehicles exploding and drowning.
No, I don't think there's too much to say other than the units there. Obviously, they're very good. Yeah. And there are so many losses which are not recorded.
Yes.
Like every time you see a video from there, you really have to check the background because typically there would be 1, 2, 3 more just laying around which you didn't know before, or like in that honey badger video from a couple of days or a week ago or something like that, where all of a sudden you would find 20 abandoned or destroyed BMPs somewhere which you never knew existed before.
Yeah. So hopefully soon we'll get a nice, clear, sunny day, and we'll get a good high-res image of this area, and we'll map all the things we can't find. Yep. So the next topic is Chasivyar. Chasivyar is undergoing really heavy artillery bombardments and airstrikes, both. It's obviously preparatory. They're preparing for a large assault. They've been pushing vehicles up into, I guess you could call it gray area or gray zones. There was this BMD2, which I actually have a video of, and I think I can show at least part of that video. So this is just kind of showing the general state of things in this general area. You can see it is actively shooting, and then the drone hits it. I'm not going to show that part, but this is more or less showing just what the area looks like. The trees are defoliated. The trenches are obviously abandoned, or Ukraine abandoned them. The BMD is engaging in the next trench line down, which is approximately half a kilometer away. And yeah, this took place roughly right here. The Ukrainian trench is roughly here, and it's been getting hit by pretty large airstrikes on a very regular basis. So yeah, Chasiv Yar. Chasiv Yar is here, and there's all of these smaller towns in front of it. But for the sake of brevity, we just consider basically all of these towns to be Chasiv Yar. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on there. You could just keep on sprinting through the news and go to the next area, right? Unless you want to talk about.
I just have one question. So we did see the Russians were making quite quick gains, like 2 months ago. But ever since, I would say maybe a month, we see that it has almost culminated, or it's going very slowly. What's your impression?
I think Ukraine was overextended. They were trying to defend positions that were not really meant to be defended. They were positions that they were attacking from. But obviously, the days of them attacking are long since gone, and I think they just withdrew. Some of these places were absolutely destroyed by FPV drones, particularly this trench line right here. When this trench line fell, it was really bad news bears. A lot of things fell with it in pretty quick order. There was also these trench lines along these forests and on this ridge line here. Those were kind of the backstop that Ukraine was trying to hold to defend Ivanivska, but they were eventually lost due to lack of ammunition. And when they were lost, they had to withdraw all the way back to these trench lines in the rear, which is where they currently are. I fully expect more of these trenches to be lost in the near future, particularly this trench, if they haven't lost it already. We actually haven't had evidence that Ukraine holds this anymore, but we also don't have evidence that Russia has taken it. So I just don't change the map in that case. But I wouldn't be surprised if they have lost that, and that they're using the rail line and this forest as their defensive line at the moment, along with this main trench here. Now, what's behind this trench, I honestly don't think there's anything behind that trench, which is scary, honestly. I'm sure that this tree line right behind it is probably defended, but when we look at it, I don't see heavy defenses. Like this forward tree line has like a trench system that kind of bulges out a little bit on both sides, and it's pretty well defended. And the one behind it, I don't see that. Maybe I'm just missing it. But yeah, I expect that this defensive line will hold a little bit longer, but I don't think Ukraine has any illusion of holding this forever. Like, this is a temporary position just to slow down the Russians for a bit while Ukraine can prepare better defenses behind it. Unfortunately, I think that their defenses are being built really far back, not like immediately behind it, just because of the threat from drones and artillery and whatever. Hopefully they're building defenses along the canal, but I don't think they actually are, but I hope they are. It's all kind of scary, to be honest. The people I talk to and read, they think Russia will capture Chasiv Yar this summer. They think it will take about 4 to 5 months for them to capture it. If Ukraine holds Chasiv Yar going into autumn, that means things have gone very well for Ukraine. Okay, so moving on. Bilohorivka. There was the attack south of Bilohorivka, moving up towards the Ukrainian trenches in the south, and also.
But that was the K2 video.
Yeah, it happened a while ago, I think, right?
Yeah. That was rather old. I think it last year sometime.
Yeah. More recently, there was this what day was it?
The
Yeah,
golf
here.
tournament.
Yeah, here there was the
Oh,
Ukrainian assault, which I found very interesting.
you can actually show the video. There's no casualty.
Yes, I have pre-downloaded the video because I was scared.
And
that things would
and
work.
I laughed so much when I saw that video.
It's like better hand grenades.
Sorry about that. Who needs a hand grenade when you have a anti-tank mine? With a you just light it on fire.
The first one is okay. The second one I thought was really funny because it just rolled into the into that hole.
Oh,
It all,
everyone's so
I think-
casual. It's like,
Yeah. And I think it really gives you a perspective of, just how big of a punch those anti-tank mines actually possess.
especially in the confined spaces of a bunker. I should stop now. But yeah, that happened right here.
They throw another one. You should show the second one. And they are not shooting anyone. You don't see anyone at least.
Yeah, but I still don't really want to show shooting. Okay, so
Because this one, for some reason, I enjoyed a lot more because the way he just lets it slide in there. But what I find so interesting is that it feels to me that he's casually standing there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's obviously an experienced soldier there. Because just from not being in the war, I would be scared, as shit standing there.
It's like when you handle explosives, it's like any other thing that could be very, very scary, right? If you put someone that has never seen a car before and behind the wheel and they drive in 100 kilometers an hour, they're going to be super scared about, killing themselves or other people. But if you handle explosives, daily, it might look very strange. And of course, any mistake can result in catastrophic events, but it's like any other thing that if done badly, it kills people instantly. So I think this is just, a guy that has been handling a lot of explosives and know exactly how much time he has before the explosion goes off.
the explosion isn't really the part I would be scared of. it's more the casual nature of him like standing up in a trench, like not like in the trench, but like above the trench. You're just like standing there.
Yeah, exactly. So those two things. I would be scared of the explosion because I have no idea about how that works, and I know that tank mines are typically also, particularly those are typically, triggered by pressure, and you're throwing that one into something you don't know what it's going to, bounce against, and could it explode? I don't know.
It didn't have the original fuse in it. It had a blast cap, or what do you call it in English? Blast cap.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, so it's not going to be triggered by any pressure.
No.
Okay.
It looked like it had I was looking at this earlier. It seems like there's a hole drilled in the TM62 and a blasting cap inside with a old-fashioned.
Yeah, it's very old-fashioned.
Yeah, old-fashioned dynamite fuse, basically.
Yeah.
It's the old fashioned that would worry me more.
I've blown up things and with those fuses actually. It really is a weird thing the first time you do it because you light it and you see the flames going into what it looks like a tube, and then you kind of lose track of where that flame is inside the fuse. So yeah, it's a very strange feeling the first time you use explosives like that. Yeah, but these guys they're used to it. They know that a meter of that fuse is X amount of seconds, and it's reliably so as well. Hopefully, if it's not reliably, burning X amount of seconds, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep this in mind next time I get stressed out about something totally insignificant. That there are bigger problems in life.
So this trench is actually super important. We've talked about it before. How they dug a really deep trench between the road and what was it, like a berm or whatever. Anyway, they dug a really deep trench. It's like 5 meters deep, like it's stupid deep. And I believe in the bottom of the trench there's probably a bunker or a series of bunkers under it, and I think that might be what he's throwing the explosives into, or those bunkers. They're very deep underground. So basically there's this really deep trench that's just like literally along the road, like it's like where the water used to drain out, and then there's this like little like berm thing, and then on the other side of the berm there's the trench that you saw them walking through. And anyway, this was all very important defensive position for Ukraine, holding this road, both from stopping Russia from using the road itself from the east, but also stopping them from moving from the north. So it's very important. Ukraine also controls a trench line that is roughly here, and that trench kind of goes out on this like 45-degree angle out, and I think it ends like roughly there. And so they just had to move from right there to right there. It's not very far, like maybe 100 meters, and that's what they did, and they assaulted this trench. And I don't know if they captured it or not, but it kind of looks like they did.
Yeah, and then I think yesterday or the day before there was a golf tournament, right?
Well, yeah, of course there was. Oh, not that day. Yep, there sure was. There was a bunch of golf carts up here that they were having a little fun, and yep, and then there was some BMPs over here. They're having some fun. They got stuck. I think they bottomed out and had to abandon them. And then there's there's a bunker right here under this tree. There's like a hole in the ground. It kind of looks like a Zelda game, to be honest. And there's like a little square, perfectly square hole, and you just jump in the hole and you're in a bunker. This guy, he tried jumping in the hole, but he just kept getting hit by FPV drones and he didn't make it. So yeah, that was a fun day. There's a lot of desert crosses being lost lately. A lot of golf carts. It's weird for me whenever I see a golf cart in real life. I just instinctively think that they're like going to the front. They're ready to go. That's all you need, right? That's all you need. You just need a golf cart and you're combat ready.
Like you go to Florida at Mar-a-Lago and it's like, oh shit, why is the place full of Russians?
Yeah. All right. So the next point of news is that Ukraine raised a flag in the Serebranska forest, and there's a video of this. Here's the video. It was published by Deep State. They raised a flag. I'm not. Oh, I thought I was playing the video, but apparently I'm not. Here it is.
So this feels like a rather, I don't know, unnecessary thing. I have to say.
You said it was a forest?
Yes.
It was.
And it's close to a Russian position.
Who has that trench?
Well, Ukraine's raising a flag, so I think they do.
I'm not convinced. I think so. From a couple of things I heard, they more or less lured or ventured into enemy terrain to raise their flag, which is why I'm saying this feels a bit unnecessary.
I don't think there's any chance this is enemy terrain. You could maybe it's a gray zone. I had it mapped as a gray zone prior to this, and I put it as a Ukrainian control because they put a little flag. There's no way Russia controls this. Like, there's no way. We've never had any evidence of Russia being here, or like in a consistent like a permanent presence. We've never had evidence of that. Like the furthest south that we've had the Russians was like around here, not here though. But like they're more on the east, and they tend to be around this kind of main road here, but I don't think I've never seen evidence of them actually controlling this far south. At least not in a very long time. It could be a gray area. I just mapped it as Ukrainian control because they put up a flag, and there was like nobody shooting at them, and I really thought it was a completely abandoned no man's zone, and it may be, maybe still.
Yeah, and just for the audience, some of the audience might still remember how just 3 weeks ago you said that you don't care about flags.
No, yeah. Well, I mean, this is like raising a flag in a contested town is like one thing. Raising a flag in a completely abandoned area where there's no evidence that the enemy is even there, like at all, like it's literally zero evidence. Like it's like different. Like it's just different.
Yeah, I feel it.
So yesterday, I think it was yesterday, well, it was 2 days ago. I drew the Russians advancing here, and then yesterday I reversed it, and I kind of felt stupid. But then I got like a text message this morning when I woke up. I like read the text message. The text message told me that I was right both times. That Russia actually did move up and capture all of this, like legitimately captured it. And then yesterday they lost it all again. It was actually happened. Like both things actually happened. It wasn't a mistake. And it made me feel better.
I read today that Ukraine did counterattack, and there's also the video of one of the Ukrainian tanks going in that direction and shooting into the forest, and so that seems to be related. Yeah,
this tank. So there's that. There's it made me feel better when I got that text message. Anyways, so that's really all I have to say about this area. Is Russia advanced, and then they were pushed back, and now they're in where they were before, and nothing changed really.
Did you talk about the Leopard event on Tuesday already? I forgot when it happened.
I think we like sort of talked about it, but not in detail. But basically, it was right here, right? Yeah. Ukraine abandoned a Stritzwagen 122. They abandoned it. I believe they abandoned it because, if I remember right, it was driving back to Ukrainian lines, and it got hit by an FPV drone, and then another FPV drone, and then another, and then like 8 more, and they kept hitting the engine. The armor above the engine, coming down on like a 45-degree angle. And eventually, I think they took out the radiator in one of the hits. And eventually the engine started overheating and smoking, and the crew jumped out and ran away. The crew, in the video, the crew really tried to save the tank. They tried really hard to save the tank. But they just kept getting hit in the engine, and I think the radiator failed. And the engine overheated. Anyways, they abandoned it. The Russians tried to recover it with 2 Brem 1s.
And I think this is one of the first things to know, that those tanks are so heavy that Russia needs to deploy 2 recovery vehicles to pull it. So this is already kind of good news, because this also gives opportunity to any of the abandoned tanks, which Ukraine has enough of, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, there's like 10 abandoned leopards in this area. So anyway, because the leopard, I believe, is 60 tons or something, and like the Soviet tanks are like 45, I think. So it's like 1/3 heavier than a Soviet tank. So they need two armored recovery vehicles. And basically, Ukraine hit the first Brem because they're towing it like two. They hit the first one, which cut out the engine. The second one proceeded to ram it at full speed, which I think may have disabled the Brem, to be honest. I think that may have disabled it. The first Brem eventually caught fire and burned down. The second one caught fire, but I don't think was destroyed. And then they started hitting the Leopard with FPV drones, but I don't think it did anything.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
The Leopard is basically totaled. I don't think it can be repaired.
So if we're going to do a prediction, who's going to predict that Russia is going to get there with now, what do they need now? Like six Brems to tow their 2 Brems and the Leopards?
Yeah.
It's going to be a train.
It's a choo-choo train. What would you save first? Would you save, because like 1 Brem is totaled, so I guess you'd have to tow it away to get it out of the way. The other Brem is very badly damaged, and I think it broke its drive wheel. I think it broke the drive wheel when it rammed the other Brem at full speed. Or maybe it broke the idler. I'm not sure where the idler is on the Brem, but I think it's broken. I think it can't drive anymore. So you need to tow that. Would you rather save the Brem or go for the Leopard?
Yeah, go for the Leopard, because that's what I get money for.
Okay.
I won't get, like, if I'm a Russian soldier, thank God I'm not. I'm gonna get money if I bring that Leopard back, but I'm not gonna get anything if I save my comrades or my own equipment. So the incentive is quite clear, and that's what counts. I'm a strong believer in incentives.
Okay, so we have a random question that I kind of don't want to answer, but I'm going to answer it anyway. The question is, will Trump be arrested if he can't pay the fine? The answer is no.
No, he won't be arrested. Trump Tower will be padlocked by the NYPD. And as someone who was born in New York City and will be heading back there in 10 days, I cannot wait to see that happen.
I really, man, I can't wait for Monday. Man.
Yeah, I've had the luxury of working with many NYPD officers. I was very briefly involved with certain sporting events where the NYPD were essentially subcontracted for security. And while I guarantee you 99% of them are Trump voters, they love the spotlight more than anything else. And there will be a line of lieutenants all around Fifth Avenue lining up to padlock Trump Tower officially.
Or at least his like 31st floor or whatever he owns.
You're highlighting a good point, because he doesn't even own the whole freaking building.
No, I think he owns like 2 floors.
But again, given the NYPD's propensity for, the most dangerous place in New York is between an NYPD officer and a camera, possibly also between Chuck Schumer and a microphone. It's debatable, but I think there would be a ceremonial padlocking of the door. This is the police force that invented the perp walk, so there will be cameras, no doubt about that.
Right. So we have two more, well, one more topic really, one last thing, and I think we can get through it pretty quickly. But it is okay. So first, the what are they called? The Legion of Freedom. They walked around the town and of Gorkovsky, and they raised a little flag, and they claim to have captured the entire town. So, well, in the same vein, the town is getting regularly bombarded by airstrikes, including apparently a 1,500 kilogram bomb landed near or on the main road in the town and did not explode. And now there's just a giant bomb sitting in the road, and nobody wants to do anything about it because they're scared. So that's one thing. That's this town here, and then a little bit to the west. The who are these guys? The RDK. Are these the anyway? Doesn't matter. The RDK they captured some houses towards the
but the event
Yes.
you just zoomed in on is actually a lot funnier than that.
Okay.
Because like if you zoom in again, there's two fighting symbols. One is the Russian and one is the Ukrainian.
Yeah.
So in this particular situation, RDK soldiers were on the upper floor of that building, and Russian soldiers came to clear it. So the thing is, they were well trained, those Russian soldiers. Like their entire lineup, how they prepared to clear the house, was very well trained. It just didn't work out
It did
quite
not work.
so well.
It didn't work.
Yes.
It reminded me of the viral Romanian police clip from like 20 years ago. I don't know if you've seen that video, but it was like the same thing happened. Or they stack up to go through the door, and then like the third guy pulls out a grenade and throws it through the door, but it like bounces off the door and comes back at them and explodes, and then they all run away. The one guy trips over the piece of wood and drops his gun and gets up and keeps running. And then like this random civilian comes and picks up the gun and runs after him to give the gun back.
Yeah.
That's basically what happened
describes
here.
it. This describes it perfectly. This is exactly what happens. So one Russian throws a grenade, it bounces off, it explodes outside right in front of the door where they were lining up to enter. It kind of messes up the entire situation. On top of that, you have Ukrainian FPV drones flying, hitting those soldiers, and the RDK soldiers on top. They just, hold their guns out of the windows and fire right down there. So that wasn't very successful. What I found very interesting was that they didn't arrive there with any sort of armored vehicle, but they arrived there with some I don't know some tractor with a trailer or something like that.
I thought it was a pickup truck.
No, I don't think it was a pickup truck. It was open, if I remember correctly, and like that was so super weird. You would expect them, to have some armored vehicle there.
Yeah,
but
you think so?
I guess it's golf cart terrain anywhere now. So, yeah, kind of like a desert cross.
So that's that. They're fighting right there.
But like yesterday, there was one more interesting video, and this is the airstrikes. So Russia is actively bombing that area with FAPs. I think you have to go to today for another airstrike. Not that one exactly. So this one I found very interesting because you can see that one of those buttons is actually quite far off, and that certainly wasn't the target. Instead, it's really close to the cemetery. And imagine it hit the cemetery, how many Ukrainian soldiers they would have found dead there after that. But yeah, I think what you see is that the same strategy they do in Ukraine with complete disregard for what they hit, as long as it's roughly in that area, they also apply to their own terrain. And I really thought that was really interesting because like it clearly tells us that Moscow only really cares about Moscow.
Oh yeah. They do not care about Belgrade at all. Like I'm not sure I'm not sure Moscow even considers Belgrade to be actually inside Russia. They like consider it to be like a buffer zone.
Yeah, most of them speak some sort of Ukrainian, right?
I think they all speak Russian.
Yeah, but like the older people from Belgorod, their language is closer to Ukrainian than it is to Russian, and they still speak it.
They speak Surchik.
You want to
Not-
explain more on that?
Surchik is it's basically some sort of dialect. Okay, I'm not an expert. That's important to say, but it's some sort of dialect that is a mix between Ukrainian and Russian. I'm not sure if that description is very accurate, but that's how it's been explained to me by Ukrainians. A lot of Ukrainians also do speak Surchik.
All right. So that's all the topics I had in my list.
Yeah. Okay. Then one more thing about Kasinka, because also yesterday there was a Russian video of shelling, and I think this is something we need to talk about. It's the one to the left is still in the Sumy region. So
Here.
this video is really bad. Did you see it, Andrew? Did you watch it?
I screenshotted it while I was really tired at 4:00 in the morning.
I don't know if you see all those white dots, but that's a lot of soldiers. And I'm not sure who trained RDK or if if most of those RDK soldiers participated in the ongoing war so far. But this kind of behavior, you're not expecting 2 years into experiencing this war. So the Recon drone spots really huge accumulations of infantry, and it just goes on to shelling. I think one thing that is kind of lucky is that the first shell went off really far, I would say. So they did have a fair warning, and they kind of dispersed into the fields and so on. But nevertheless, a lot of those shells do hit accurately on soldiers. So there are a lot of casualties in that video alone. And I know that you have been talking about, the sense of this entire operation, and you were one of the few who were highlighting the immense costs of it. Videos like this cannot be disregarded if you evaluate the entire operation and what it costs. And I'm not entirely sure if, I don't know, possibly something like, I don't know, 50, 60 casualties in that video. Of course, not only deceased, but also wounded. That easily in just one video of 1.5 minutes or something like that justifies a lot of the other stuff that's going on.
Yep. It's frustrating. They also had videos of casualties near Popivka the other day. Yeah, that's all we got. I think that's all the news we have for today. We might do another stream tomorrow to cover the news that happened tomorrow. Is it a joke? Yesterday's news today.
Yeah.
Thank you for the coffee money. Thank you very much.
Oh, one thing we can mention is, Andrew, we've been on Touchme this week.
Oh yeah. We talked to the to Dima from.
Yep.
You want to talk about it?
From Wild Hornets. Yeah. Thank you for coming. That was really good for me and for the stream and for Dima because I was a little bit stressed before that interview, but because there was a lot of questions and didn't have a lot of time to prepare, but it was a really nice interview. And I think I've never seen any interviews with anyone that is involved with FPV drones or drones in Ukraine that go into that much detail. So I think we were very, very lucky.
Yeah, that was a very unique interview to publish anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because often those sorts of things are off the record.
Yeah, and if you don't know Wild Hornets, so they are producing FPV drones or generally drones for the Ukrainian armed forces. They rely on donations to produce them. Okay, my cat doesn't want me to talk more about this. I don't know if you hear it. But anyway, yeah, you should check out the video, learn more about FPV drones, learn more about some technology also in development. Also, Erland, you shared quite a bunch of videos that they sent you before and pictures of the production process, which I thought was really interesting. Yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
The one thing, the big problem that they have is that they don't have the money to buy a lot of supplies. So they're constantly kind of working with smaller batches of goods. So like they can't go out and buy like a whole bunch of motors or a whole bunch of chips or or even like probably a whole bunch of polymer, etc. They always have to buy smaller orders, and smaller orders are more expensive in the long run, and it creates inefficiencies in your manufacturing process, and also it makes it harder to prepare for emergency orders and things like that. So what they need is more money so that they can buy bigger batches so that they can operate more efficiently.
Yeah, of course, and also like living, from hand to mouth like that is, difficult planning wise. How many people are you gonna try and have this week for building drones when you don't know how much supplies you have? It's not really a nice model to work from.
Yeah.
So yeah, I sent you the link in the chat for their website. They actually have an English site now, which is good. So all the information about, so since we didn't have any other donation fundraiser that we promote today, thank you, Geek, that you highlighted this, because I think this one is a really, really nice one to donate to. I also want to emphasize that the quality of these drones is very high, and we can see like consistent good quality in the production, because we see that they post a lot of pictures, and I receive some pictures from them now and then from their staff, and consistently they have like really nice, good quality builds, and also improvement all the time, and that's really nice to see. And they're working really hard to improve their technology and their product. And yeah, listen to the interview if you're interested in this stuff, because Dima was describing how much they do to improve the product and all the different technical things about improving the range and resistance against EW and stuff. So
yeah, and I can add that the Wild Hornet videos are typically on the, let's say, possible end of geolocation, because they edit the videos excuse me, for the fundraisers, and most of them are possible to geolocate. So if you want to help us also with content which we can work with, your donation is well placed there, contrary to some other units which give you 1 second of FPV hit and then the next FPV hit and so on.
Yeah.
But any donation to those units, of course, works, or the producers. But White Hornets, you can learn more about them and get to know some of the people in the interview, and maybe you feel better about that.
And I want to say thank you to Mike for your donation. I really appreciate it. Yep, and the Wild Hornets are great. I put the link in the description.
Perfect. Yeah, the donation is like way down, like the information. It's all the way down on the bottom.
Yeah. So SK has a question about the donation there. Andrew, I don't know if you're seeing that, because I'm not sure I understand the question.
I don't fully understand it either. What the Wild Hornets make are FPV drones. If that clears it up, they make the physical drone. They have nothing to do with the weaponizing of the drone, really. Well, there's one thing that they do. They make the sensors for like the contact sensor, but also we learned that they don't really use contact sensors on their drones very often. It's a remote explosion. They have a button on the controller that it blows it up, but they don't really weaponize the drone. They're civilians. They don't have the legal or like military expertise to weaponize a drone. So they make the drone, they program it with their software, they make sure it works correctly, and they make sure it flies and it has the right flight profile and the right antennas and it works on the right frequencies. And then they ship the drone to a unit, and that unit weaponizes it. So they put whatever explosive they are going to use, whether it's like an RPG or a bomb or whatever, the unit weaponizes it to whatever need they need, and then they fly it and use it.
Yep. And I think he also didn't want to talk about that too much yesterday.
Yeah.
Or the day before. But yeah, I saw also another question: is it privatized production of drones? Well, in the sense that it's not the government, yes, but
it's a charity.
They don't. Yeah, it's a charity. They don't sell the drones any, and that's actually different from a lot of these entities that makes drones in Ukraine. Some of them do sell them to the units, and that's how they actually fund their operation. But they donate every single drone. Some of them actually do donate and sell at the same time. But Wild Hornets only donate the drones.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of volunteers. Some are and we learned that some of them are paid, but it's like the people that have certain expertise that they really, really need, they go out and like headhunt them and find them, which is in a way a very good sign. That means they're probably doing really advanced high-end stuff.
Yeah, they probably hire like the really important jobs, like running the specialized machinery and stuff like that takes actual expertise. And then they have various types of volunteers who do construction, like taking all of the 3D parts, 3D printed parts, and putting them together, and screwing the motherboard on and gluing the bits on, and doing all the basic construction. You don't need specialized degrees or anything to do that sort of thing. And then building it is the easiest part. It's kind of like, it's like putting together a Lego set, kind of. But programming the drone to operate correctly is the harder part. And they have various, you have to flash the firmware, you have to put on the software, you have to make sure everything is operating correctly, that there's no shorts on the board, and all the things that you have to do to make sure hardware works correctly. Yeah, and I have heard about the Chinese chips that were apparently sabotaged. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard about it.
Oh, what was the story there? That the Russian drones exploded as soon as they turned them on?
Oh, that was a different story. But yeah, there was
a different story.
Yeah, I think it was Romanov, or maybe it was one of the FPV pilots. Maybe it was I can't remember who said it. But they got a batch of 1,000 drones, I think, from St. Petersburg, and when they tried to use the drones, I think 2 pilots were killed and 1 was very badly injured, and then they basically recalled the entire batch of drones. And one of the more prominent Russian guys was like, why are we hiring morons to build our drones? They're actually very dangerous weapons. You can't just throw them together and hope for the best. And there's been rumors that it was sabotage, but I honestly don't think it was. I think it was just people. There's probably some like scummy businessman who just wanted to make money.
Yeah, it's probably not the best if you manufacture drones with, I don't know, probably students or child labor or something like that in malls somewhere in Russia. Probably not the best outcome.
By the way, I saw a question. The drones are made in Kiev.
In Ukraine, you shouldn't.
Yeah. No, they said we can say it. It's in Kiev. They've said it several times.
Yeah. Also, someone asked if you can also share Konstantin's fundraiser or add the link to the description. I think you will do that, Andrew, right?
Yeah.
So we will have Wild Hornets. And by the way, can anyone clear that up to me? Is it Wild Hornets? Yes, but why is it sometimes Violent Hornets? Like their Telegram channel is Violent Hornets.
So I think the Wild Hornets account was taken, and they just decided to take Violent Hornets. I'm not sure exactly.
Okay.
But that's what they explained to me. But
okay, it's that easy.
Yeah, and in Ukrainian, it's a total different.
This is the why is it not working? Boom. This is what you this is it, right?
Yeah, this is his current fundraiser for 92nd, 5th, but also for Spartan and Robotne. Yeah, exactly.
There we go.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the original name is Diki Shchershny. So the original name for this group is in Ukrainian, and the translation is Wild Hornets.
So there was one last point that I wanted to bring up, just because it's fun. We've been talking about excavators and how important they are, and raising money for them. And I just want to say that today, Japan delivered a whole bunch of excavators to Ukraine. They are not military excavators, to be clear, but they are excavators, and these are like the big boy excavators. They're like 40-ton excavators, like gigantic, huge excavators, and they're going to be used to do civilian stuff. Like one project, they need to lay water pipelines due to the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam. So they're going to use those excavators to dig the trenches to lay the water mains. And then there's other projects as well, similar to that. Dredging out areas that were destroyed by, flooding, mud and salt, and also just things like that. So Japan delivered a whole bunch of excavators today. Now that was friendly. And they're very big and blue. Anyways, I think that's the stream. I think we're done. So thank you to everybody who came and listened, and thank you to our guests. We have Laura Mipsum and Gick and Erland, and we had John, but he left a while ago. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye.